Guys, I know that this is way overdue. And by the way, spoiler alert, spoiler alert. Just had to say that 3 times just to clear that out. Just make that clear. Um, so surprisingly, this movie is actually still playing in theaters. So this movie came out February 27th, I believe that was, and I think they had like the early screening like February 26th. Of course, I went to go see it that night. You know, I always see Scream on opening weekend. And right now, as of this recording, this is March 29th. And it's actually kind of surprising because nowadays horror films and slasher films are in theaters for like 2 or 3 weeks. This one has been there just over a month, and they still have showtimes going into April. I'm assuming it's probably going to go for the first week of April, maybe the first couple weeks. Whenever it hits streaming, it's more likely going to go to Paramount because, it's distributed by Paramount Studios, and that's where the last couple films went. So, before I dig into my personal thoughts on the movie, and there is a lot to say about it. So here's the percentage ratings for these different sources. Now, no surprise here, Rotten Tomatoes gave it a 31%. Um, Internet Movie Database gave it a 56. Google users gave it a 64. Fandango gave it a 75. And Common Sense Media gave it a 40. Now, keep in mind, this movie is still in theaters. It's going to be there for another couple weeks. And some of those numbers could change at any moment between now and then. Of course, it's probably not going to change that much. It might be 2, 3 numbers off, basically within margin of error. But so they did bring back some of the original cast members, and they did bring back, of course, Nev Campbell had reprised her role because she was absent from the last film. Courtney Cox is back, and they also brought back. I'm not going to spoil exactly how they did this, but I'll say this: they did bring back some of the past Ghostface killers. They did bring back Matthew Lillard. They brought back Nancy Loomis. They brought back Roman Bridger, and I thought that was pretty interesting. I thought it would have been cooler if they had did that with the other ghost faces too. If they did Charlie, Jill, and some of the others, Richie, Amber, Richie's family, all of that. Of course, you have some new cast members that joined here. You have McKenna Grace, you have Isabel May, you have Anna Camp, you have Asa German, and Celeste O'Connor. Now, of course, some of the other cast members they brought back too: David Arquette, Mason Gooding, and Jasmine Savoy. So, and there's an entire cast here. I mean, you also have Joel McHale, who played Sydney's husband, Mark. Which, by the way, most of us thought that Mark was going to be Mark Kincaid from Scream 3, who was played by Patrick Dempsey. Now, um, without further ado, let's get into this. So, let me tell you what the very shocking thing is about this, what I find to be shocking about it. And by the way, look in the comment section. I posted uh, the box office numbers for the other Scream films, and this one is the highest grossing Scream film to date, which is something that I did not predict. I'm sure most of my fellow Scream fans didn't predict this. So this movie has a budget of 45 million. The box office now sits at over 204 million. Um, I did not think they were going to get that to that point, and I knew that they were going to make more than the fourth film. I figured they would make roughly about the same as the fifth film. I didn't think they were going to top the first three and the sixth one. Why was that? Because a lot of people thought that this movie was going to be a flop because of the whole controversies with them firing Melissa Barrera and Jenna Ortega quitting, and Christopher Landon, who was one of the directors, he quit, and so they went through this whole um, this creative retooling, I guess you can say. There was a lot of things that got in the way of it. Now, what would I have to rate this movie? I would have to give this a. If I'm being 100% honest with you here, I'm kind of stuck between. I'm stuck between a 7.5 and an 8. If I had to get real, if I had to get all annoying and detailed with it, I'd be like 7.8, 7.9. Right now, I could say close to an 8. And here's why. So, what was different about this film compared to the other movies? Well, number one, So when you look at the opening scene, and of course, like I said, there's going to be some spoilers. The movie's been in theaters for over a month now, so you've had plenty of time to see it. If you don't want to hear the spoilers, cut off the video right now. Um, so in the opening scene, we have. Hold up, let me go back to what are their names? Hold on, what's his name? Where is it? Okay, here we go. In the opening scene, we have two people that visit the Stumacher house, in the house that was used in Screams um, 1 and 5. Was that the same house that was also used in 4? I can't remember. But two people visit the house. You have Scott and Madison, played by Jimmy Tatro and Michelle Randolph. You know, they're being pranked by Ghostface. Of course, they get killed by him. What sets this movie apart from the others is that the opening scene is actually not directly relevant to what goes on in the rest of the movie. So in terms of the movie after the title card and after the introduction, it's not relevant. The beginning scene took place in Woodsboro, and then you have the rest of the movie taking place in a city that is called, I believe, Pine Grove, Indiana. Is it Pine Grove or Grove? Yeah, it's Pine Grove, Indiana. So it's like, well, what happened? Ghostface killed two people in Woodsboro, then traveled all the way to Indiana to try to kill Sydney and Gail and the rest of them. The whole thing was crazy. So here's the synopsis. When a new Ghostface killer emerges in the quiet town where Sydney has built a new life, her darkest fears are realized as her daughter becomes the next target. Determined to protect her family, she must face the horrors of her past to put an end to the bloodshed once and for all. Now, in terms of this movie really addresses the controversy of whether or not Stu Macher is dead. Now, I'm not going to tell you that part. If you didn't see the movie, you got to go see it yourself and go watch for yourself, and then kind of determine how you feel about it from there. In terms of the killer reveal, I got to be honest. I feel like this is probably the weakest killer reveal in the Scream franchise, in my opinion. It's not to say that it wasn't a little bit interesting. Um, there were two ghost faces, and one of them I kind of predicted. One of them I was right about, and then the other one I didn't know because it was kind of unexpected. But it's like, how do I put this? I think the motive behind why they became killers was weak. It didn't make much sense to me. It made even less sense than the motives in, like, say, probably even less so than the motive from the killers in Scream 5, if not equivalent to that. Now, do I think that the third act was still very interesting and thrilling? Yes. I mean, you're talking guns, you're talking fight scene, all of that stuff. You put that in a movie, that usually gets my attention. Now, here's how Common Sense Media breaks it down. In Scream 7, a young couple book a stay at the legendary Mocker House where the killings from the original movie took place, only to end getting hacked up by a new Ghostface killer. Meanwhile, in the town of Pine Grove, Sydney is trying to lead a normal life. She's running a coffee shop, is married to a police officer, and is raising 3 kids. Her eldest teen, Tatum, has been a handful lately, wanting to know more about her mother's past, while Sid just wants to protect her. It's not long before Sid gets another threatening call from another Ghostface, but it turns out to be Stu, even though everyone thought he was killed 30 years ago. Gail Weathers arrives on the scene with her new crew, twin siblings Mindy and Chad, and everyone sets about trying to uncover the identity of who's really on a killing rampage. Now, there were 6 parents who gave it an 80%, and then there were 13 kids. They said it's an 80%. Again, I don't know why is it that every time I do the horror film reviews on Common Sense Media, there's always more kids than adults commenting. I don't understand that. That's crazy to me. It's strong on nostalgia and has a few good jump scares, but this sequel sadly lacks both the meta quality that made the original movie great and the freshness of the previous requel entries. Kevin Williamson, the creator of the original Scream and the writer of the superior sequels 2 and 4, returned to the franchise to co write and direct 7. He clearly has a fondness for Sydney and is interested in her relationship with her daughter, but truthfully, he's not much of a director. This is only his second time behind the camera, and the first was Teaching Miss Tingle, a dud of a horror comedy that no one remembers fondly. Yeah, I sure don't. I never watched it, so I can't judge it. The best scenes here involve Sydney handling the challenges and traumas of her life, and Nev Campbell gives a very strong performance, while the worst involve the final reveal, a huge stretch of logic that will leave most viewers shaking their heads. For the most part, the filmmaking is functional. The Ghostface stalking sequences are fine, somewhat rudimentary, and owing a great deal to the late Craven, but sometimes rather silly, as when Sydney and Tatum are shimmying through a narrow crawl space, clearly susceptible to the knives being plunged through the drywall. But the biggest flaw in the movie is the absence of horror movie knowledge that allows the characters to stay on an even playing field with the killers. That has turned into fandom, knowledge with no practical use. Maybe that's what Scream 7 is ultimately trying to say, but its lackluster presentation feels mismatched. Okay, and so they have a point on that, and so for that very reason alone, that's why I said this movie to me is almost an 8. So it's really, to me, it's like between a 7.6 and a 7.9. But you know me, anybody who knows me knows that if I give a movie at least a 7, it's still good. And this is a movie that I've obviously seen more than once, and I'm going to watch it again in the future. I'm probably not going to rewatch it as many times as I did the other films, especially the fourth one. But nevertheless, I thought it was pretty all right. I thought it was good, just not as good as the others. Apparently, and I see that there are there are talks that the eighth movie is already in development. Um, I'm sure it's almost confirmed, even though we don't have an exact date yet. I sure hope that there's not too many obstacles that come in the way of this one in terms of, oh, well, somebody else got fired and somebody else quit. Now the movie doesn't come out until the year 2030 or some mess like that. Hopefully they do bring back like Jenna Ortega, Hayden Panettiere, Melissa Barrera, whatever. So, um, and like I said, whenever the movie comes to streaming, um, it's more likely going to be on Paramount Plus. It might possibly be on Netflix or whatever. Um, and so yeah, I mean, I gotta be honest with you. There's not really much else to say about it. I think that it had some good effects. The opening scene where Ghostface had burned down the Stoopmacher house. I think that that was saying something in a sense like, okay, listen, basically, it's this house is over. Stoopmacher's dead. Whatever. They're not going to be using this house again for future movies if they have future movies. Don't get your hopes up too high though, because you know how the movie industry is, and you see what they're doing with Fast and Furious now. So just keep that in mind. Um, And some of the scenes in the movie, I felt like some of the characters should have gotten more screen time. So McKenna Grace, her character, basically was in it for a good 5, 6 minutes. um, some of the other characters in there lasted a little bit longer than I thought. Mindy and Chad actually survived this film. That's two people of color who actually survived three consecutive slasher films. I mean, you don't see that often. They were in 5, 6, and 7, survived all of them. Granted, the way they were attacked in this film wasn't as severe as the way that they were attacked in the sixth film. I mean, in the sixth film, let's face it, most of us thought Chad was dying at that scene. They made it again. Um, Gail didn't really deal with any attacks in this film, though, so that kind of felt that's another reason why the rating is a little bit lower. Um, there was also a scene in the movie where Sydney tried to open the car door and she just started running to find her daughter when she could have got Gail and they could have gotten her car and drove together. That would have saved a lot of time and been a lot more efficient and convenient. But I mean, hey, I guess I don't know if the writers thought about that, but hey, they did what they did. So that's where I would have to put this movie. Yeah, roughly I can give it about like I said, it's between a 7.5 and a 7.9 out of 10 for me. So again, still acceptable. And I don't know about you, but I'm already waiting for Scream 8. And of course, I'll be there opening weekend, regardless of who's in the movie. Now, a lot of people are saying that um, Nev Campbell's character probably won't be there much longer because then they're going to use her daughter as like the new final girl and all that. I don't know. We'll see how that goes. I mean, if she goes the Melissa Barrera route, then they'll cut her out and then it's going to go through another retooling. And I don't know what's going to happen. There's talks that say that Courtney Cox doesn't feel like doing it anymore. They might kill off her character. I don't know. It's a slasher film. It's a horror film, so anybody could die at any moment. That's just keep that in mind. So that's really how that goes. And and yeah, like I said, I can't believe that um this movie. did way better at the box office than I thought it would do. I'd said it would be lucky if it got to 140 or maybe even 150 million, and they are now at over 200 million. So, hey, good job to them, and hey, props to the cast and everything. And once again, thank you for keeping the Scream franchise alive and keeping the characters, just making everything all classic and legendary, and doing the throwbacks and nostalgia and all that. So, hey, to all my people, keep it up, and hopefully we see a Scream 8. So, if there's anything that you think that I left out, or any other like comments or thoughts or concerns or question you have, or what you thought about the movie, just put it in the comment section. Subscribe to my YouTube. Go to the About section for both my YouTube and my Facebook, and you'll see the links to all my other socials: Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram, TikTok. That's all there. And if you have any recommendations for other movies that you think I should cover or TV shows, don't hesitate, put it in the comment section. So, until next time.